What's up, Draftaholics? How you doing? We are already into week 6. This season is absolutely flying by. We've got contenders, we've got pretenders, we've got 4 or 5 teams that have essentially decided to play for next year. Maybe they don't know it yet, but
we do.
I don't know about you in Atlanta, the Atlanta homers, but it's not looking good for those Falcons. We called it early on. What's up, everyone? My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic on Twitter. We are the Draftaholics, where we're always bringing you evaluation of the NFL, teams, and players in the context of real fantasy teams. The rest, as they say, is just pretend. I'm here with the whole crew today. Across from me, what's up, buddy?
William Spinato at W Spinato on Twitter. 2 N's, 1 T. I'm doing pretty good. How are you, man?
Yeah, back from international travel. Thanks for making the time.
Celebrated Canadian Thanksgiving on the west coast of Canada. I was surprised to see how many NFL fans were even out there. I mean, obviously a lot of Seahawks fans, but as we were driving back to the airport, I saw a San Francisco 49ers flag flying high. It's interesting to see the NFL actually existing internationally.
Wow. Look at that.
How cool.
Yeah. No love for the CFL, apparently. And
yeah, not so much.
Yeah. And who's from the floating orb in the sky? Who we got today?
0-5 at George Sloten, baby. Ooh. Follow if you dare.
Oh,
but
you're killing me, Smalls.
You saw no Johnny Manziel jerseys in Canada. In Canada?
Canada.
No, not this time, but maybe I wasn't looking hard enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they say. If you just squint or look through the binoculars, you'll always see one Johnny Manziel jersey. Yeah, guys, so we're on to week 6, and in the fantasy football landscape, one of the things I really have noticed is that the running back position, after a few players, is just a wasteland.
Yeah.
And you'll notice some recurring themes, some recurring players in our CashSmash and our Floorplay here. With the exception of the season-ending injury to Jay Ajayi, there has not been much of a change to that RB1, RB2 type tier. Dalvin Cook has something to say about that. Hopefully he can get his hamstring together, because he certainly looks like a bust so far. Mm-hmm. But really, the first-round running back looks like the safest pick as it's ever been, over the last decade at least, which I think is really, really interesting compared to where we were a few years ago.
For the 0 RB truthers this year that went double wide receiver, yeah, it does seem like if you didn't take a running back in the first round, you're really suffering to find some kind of point scorer at the running back position.
Yeah, if you didn't hit on somebody like a James White, who got 15 targets, oh my goodness, on Thursday night against the Colts.
Trending to be a top 12 RB on the season, possibly, if he keeps this up, even in standard leagues.
He's getting a ridiculous amount of air yards, but even Isaiah Crowell, he's been back and forth, up and down in a season-long league. He's tough to know when to start. Right. I got Kenny Stills on my team, who, if you have him in a best ball, you've loved him, but man, I cannot figure out when to start him, and it's players like that just really frustrate you over the course of the year. That's why we try to bring everything together so that in your season-long leagues, you learn from the player pool, the players that we think are the best each week,
right? And
you can evaluate your own team based on that. They didn't talk about my specific running back, but my running back has a lot of the same features, a lot of the same things going for them. And especially when we talk about this statistics, heuristics, and logistics, we can make comparisons and you can find comparable situations that we don't necessarily bring up on the episode. But for instance, this week we've got the Bengals coming up, and they've got a great game against the Steelers. My matchup to watch, a little bit to tell you there. But I'm not going to talk about TJ Yeldon, even though he's got a really interesting matchup as the lead dog against the Dallas team that can be beat.
Yeah.
On the ground. That's simple. Or passes to running backs. So while I don't talk about him specifically, he's another player that you can add to your list. So maybe we'll, go into some pivot plays as we get further down into the year. Right now, I want to go into our week 6 matchups to watch. So these are the matchups that we find most intriguing as fantasy fans, as fantasy analysts, as just pure NFL fans, whether it can be a team versus a team, a player versus a vaunted defense, something like that, or a wide receiver cornerback matchup, or anything like that. So I want to start with George. 0-5, buddy, but you are still going strong with those hot takes. Start us off with your matchup to watch.
My takes are hot, and my players are not, but that's going to be okay. I've run into the injury bug this year, and that's going to be okay, because just get it out for this year, and I'll never have any more injuries on any of my teams in the future, right?
Right. Yeah,
so that's exactly right. Yeah. My matchup to watch is not one that's in these United States of America. We're flying over to London town.
To London, yes!
I'm bringing back the George Cockney Slotin. Seattle and Oakland, baby. We're playing in London. You know who's excited to see this game, even though he's not going to be there? Shad Khan, the Jacksonville Jaguars owner, who is desperately trying to move his team to London. I'm sure he'll be watching this. Arsenal. Yeah, exactly. I will say I would stay away from every single player on these teams because apparently they measure points in meters per catch over there, and it's 0.9 yards per meter. So all the points, the conversion issue is ESPN and Yahoo have some major flaws in their data in the background. So I would really
that's going to be a mess for the analytics.
Exactly.
Department.
Avoid Chris Carson, avoid Amari, Marshawn, Doug, Russell, Derek Carr, as you always should sit. The only person you should play is Jay Ajayi because he's from London town and he may get. What if he gets traded? He's actually not hurt. This is all
symbolically traded.
This is all a ploy to get him to play in London. John Gruden has said that he's not excited to be going to London. He's 1-4 so far. Maybe he'll have better success in England, but I'm not seeing it. Did you see? I saw a tweet where like Amari Cooper and Crowell have good and bad weeks. When one has a good week, the other one has a terrible week, and they've been trading that. So this is not the Amari. No, this is the Amari Cooper week because he had a very bad week 5 and Crowell had a great week 5. So this may be the Amari week.
This is awful analysis.
Yeah,
just gut feeling analysis.
So
that just take. I think it didn't happen last week, so I think it's going to happen.
Exactly,
George. No, George, I'm giving you crap, but it does look like an exciting matchup on paper. I am thankful for the NFL to actually schedule this London game at a normal U.S. time.
Right.
I'm sorry to be such a USA homer in this regard, but these 9 a.m. start times from seasons of yore, you're killing me, Smalls, especially the West Coasters. My gosh.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just experienced watching football at 10 a.m. this week in on the West Coast of Canada, and that was shocking. And I was thinking about, when we were enjoying pancakes and football last year with the London games, they were enjoying like twilight before the sun even rises football. I can't even imagine that.
That's insane.
Don't they? I think everybody has to switch their dominant hand while they're over there, just like driving. So everybody who's a righty is now a lefty, and vice versa, right? Is that what they're doing?
That's how it works. I mean, they have to pull on Mahomes and use their hand in order to get things
done.
And
the only liquid on the sideline is English breakfast tea, no water. That's true.
Scorching hot. Not cooled at all.
Nope.
like those squirt bottles go straight into their mouth, and it's a burn on contact.
No boiled Gatorade. Just nothing like that.
Scorching hot Earl Grey.
All right. Well, that is quite the matchup to watch, and this is quite a bad accent. So this is our next matchup to watch, probably stateside. William, what's your matchup?
My matchup to watch is the Buccaneers going to face the Falcons in Georgia. Now, this kind of seems like a theme for me. I looked back on my past few matchups to watch, and I've been picking the Falcons often. Yeah, and even though they're a hard team to watch as a fan, I'm sure what it's turned out to be is a good team to face for fantasy
production.
Production, because the defense is struggling. And because the offense can also put up points. I mentioned a couple weeks ago they put up 500 yards of offense. They almost hit that again this week. There's going to be an opportunity for the opposing team to score and have to keep up with them because they're also playing, aggressively on offense as well. I do think Jameis Winston leading the Bucs this week has a really good opportunity to turn around the Bucs. I feel like we're going to talk a little bit about Ronald Jones later, but the combination might end up being a stronger offense than they've seen in the first few weeks. I'm excited to see them take on the Falcons. It might be kind of an easy matchup, but it could start to turn the pace of the team around for the rest of the season. I'm hoping the Bucs have a pretty easy time here, but I'm also hoping that Julio and Matt Ryan can connect in the end zone for the first time. See some regression there, go in the opposite direction. I feel like it's going to be a high-scoring game and a fun one to watch for sure. And hey, I'll pivot away from the Falcons next week. I promise. But I do want to point that out that this is similar to the strategy a couple years ago of play whoever's playing against the Saints because the defense is bad and the offense can score and keep up. So there's some opportunity for efficiency or production offensively.
Efficiency and production for sure, and they are the highest implied total that is based on the Vegas over-under and the spread, the highest implied total of the Sunday. The Patriots, of course, have even more.
As a Falcons fan, I think I read that only 9 teams in history of NFL have made it to the playoffs after starting 1-4. So this is not even do or die. This is like coma or die. Like, can we get out of it? Can we get out of the coma? So
And George, that is a great segue into my matchup to watch this week. It is the Steelers and the Bengals. So ESPN NFL analytics guru, analytics OG in the football world, Brian Burke at BBurkeESPN, he publishes a graphic called the Playoff Leverage Scores. Every week he talks about the percentage chances you can gain or lose by winning or losing in an attempt to make the playoffs. Okay. So this game has the highest combined score, the highest playoff leverage swing of any matchup. For the Steelers, a win increases their odds by 27%, all the way past that 50% marker where they're expected to make the playoffs. But for the Bengals, it could be a knockout punch in this division where they could have odds boost by 24% all the way past 75, which is pretty much a clincher at this point in the season, even only 6 weeks in. So, I mean, the soap opera that is the Steelers organization these days, Days of Our Steelers, if you will, has another great episode with apparently Antonio Brown flinging things from his 14th floor Miami apartment. If that's true, he is being sued by a fellow tenant in that building who almost got injured, and I kind of understand why. And, you know, we're just hearing about this news now. Apparently it happened back in April. Also, there's this weird side tangent where apparently he called the cops. He said his Rolls Royce was stolen, and then when the cops arrived, he slammed the door in their face saying, "I found the car." I don't know what's going on.
It's weird.
But
weird.
That happened in April. This game is happening now. I don't care. The drama's exciting. It's really, there's a lot on the line. Burfict is back for Cincinnati. Mixon is back. And despite the absence of Tyler Eifert for the rest of the season, I still think that explosive Cincinnati offense, who would have said that a year ago, has a real chance to make a dent on this division. And if they win, this is a changing of the guard kind of game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just that's what it is. That's matchup to watch. Also, high implied totals for both teams. Fantasy Bonanza is in the cards as well. So that should be a ton of fun. Why don't we go right into our draft this week? So our draft, guys, I'm sorry to keep winning and then just turning around, getting the 101.
Have you had it 3 times in a row now?
I had the 102 one time in there, and I still managed to come out on top.
Yeah.
But here's our draft board for today. Started us off with Todd Gurley.
In the snow in Denver.
I still believe, one thing we should mention, don't worry so much about weather in games.
Right.
And you should worry about wind. Not so much rain. In fact, that can be advantageous for the offense. Not so much deep passing, but it doesn't mean that offensive numbers are going to plummet. Wind above 20% absolutely does. Hyper cold below 12 degrees, that changes a receiver's outlook. But besides that, snow, Todd Gurley, give it to me all day. I'll go fast for the rest of it. You can see the whole board at Draftaholics Pod on Twitter. On Instagram, we're going to post it there as well. So I start Todd Gurley and finish up with James Conner, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, and stack it up with Aaron Rodgers. Very high implied total again in the game on Monday night for the Packers against the 49ers. George in the middle slot, Melvin Gordon and Joe Mixon to start off. DeAndre Hopkins and new GOAT receiver Adam Thielen. I mean, his numbers are up there with the Antonio Browns, the Hopkins, the Julios. He's playing like a number one style player, period. Even with Diggs balling out as well. Tom Brady is his final pick there on the Sunday night matchup. Julio Jones is Williams' first pick, and Antonio Brown. So no running backs and no Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
He manages to do it. And I really like that first two because he plays the RB keep-away game. Patrick Mahomes is third pick. Christian McCaffrey, a great fourth-round value. And then Sony Michel. Fine, we'll take it. Sony Michel could have a 26-point game. Again, I have some stats and some facts that I say go against that, but I could be wrong.
I think they win this week with the running game. Again, it may be a strange pick, but I might need strange points in order to win this week from the
third tell us more heuristics.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of thinking about opportunities to land these elite wide receivers who I both think are going to have great weeks. I think Julio and Antonio Brown. I didn't want to leave the first and second round turn without them because there was a pretty good chance that one or both of them was going to be gone by the time I got back. Melvin Gordon and Todd Gurley already being taken means there was basically kind of a chunk of running backs I would have been happy with. Mixon or Connor I would have been happy with. Also McCaffrey. Since only 2 other running backs had to go off the board, I decided not to pick a running back in the next round. Mm-hmm. Then it turns out after they locked up both of their running backs, I didn't need to take one until the 4th or 5th round, so I could take the electric lefty, right-handed, ambidextrous, running, slinging, all of the above, hairstyling Patrick Mahomes, and feel pretty happy about that in the 3rd round, not letting him end up in the hands of my buddies. He's the kind of guy that could win a week, and since I can't take Tyreek Hill, might as well get Pat Mahomes.
What is this heuristic every week where I took him because I was worried you guys were going to take him?
Well,
what is that? Well, that's just a draft.
Yeah. Well, it's not exactly.
That's not a strategy.
Yeah, you're right. But in this case, it's kind of lined up with the strategy because of the positional needs that you guys had. Because you had both taken both running backs, I didn't need to jump on I didn't need to pick a running back in that round. And I had to pick a quarterback.
Apparently, I'm feeling cheeky today because I really wanted you just to explain that part. It really is a value game that you're playing. Sure. And so, while we say statistics, heuristics, logistics, and we talk about our means of projecting a team and doing a deep dive into a slate and how we figure out what players we want to pick in a stinking draft like this every week, you're looking at it in terms of value, which isn't so different from looking at it in terms of projections or looking at it in terms of storylines. But it's more than just, I was worried they were going to take them.
Right.
It's I was worried they were going to evaluate and project the player the same as me.
Right.
So with Julio Jones and Antonio Brown, it's easy to discuss that because we know that they're first-round talents. You could take them 1 overall in one of these drafts, and it wouldn't be weird. But I just wanted to clarify that for our first-time listeners out there. It's not just we're playing keep away because we feel like Antonio Brown is going to be beloved by others. It's because we have similar projection evaluations when it comes down to it.
Sure.
With all of that said, I still want to harken back to what we said in the introduction about the floors created by these first-round style running backs. James Conner currently just taking the Le'Veon Bell workload, just 1 for 1 at this point, as he proved last week versus Atlanta, and Todd Gurley, the 101 overall pick in pretty much every fantasy draft, and he is still every week. They have injury susceptibility over the course of the long term, but in the short term, we're just projecting 1 week. That's why I still want to start off with a running back. Nothing against that strategy there. I'm a little nervous about this Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers stack. We've been talking about it a little bit, George, in previous episodes. I don't actually think with these 5-person drafts, we have to stack it all. I actually think it increases the variance to the point where I have a much higher likelihood of 3rd than I do 2nd.
I totally agree with you. I was thinking about taking Ben instead of Pat Mahomes, pairing him up with Antonio Brown, but I was thinking if one of them or both of them don't hit, it gives me a better chance of ending up in 3rd. You're talking about this exactly.
Now, that said, the positive side of variance means that there's a ceiling there, where if Rodgers goes off, 3 of those touchdowns could be to Davante Adams. We can't bet on that. We can't project that. So really what I'm doing is leaning into the projection of Davante Adams, which I actually don't feel good about. I was saying during the draft that I was really torn between him and A.J. Green, and I still think I wish I could have gone A.J. Green.
Yeah.
Mike Evans, I think, is a great play in your bonanza matchup of the week there. Falcons versus the Buccaneers. I just think there's going to be tons of points there. So that was a long-winded way of saying that my projection, of course, is just a little bit higher than y'all's is. Okay, George, hit us up with a story. I know you have one.
There is a story, but in regards to that sack that we were just talking about, I think that after playing in quite a few of these 3-person drafts with you and William, that and this may certainly change depending on if you're playing against the Steelers or the Falcons, a pretty porous defense. But I'm going to probably stray away from the stack for a while because looking at the results, it seems like the person who wins every week is the one with the more booms. I think because we're only drafting 15 players, we're all expected to get points from everybody. So the floors will always be there. So it's not really a floor play in terms of a 5-person 3-team draft. I really think it's the ones that we're all picking the best, the cream of the crop. So it's those that just go that extra mile. So
Now, that said, we do add to our little Quickshots Draftaholics game where you get a second place score.
Yes.
But that's not the draft game. When you're playing, to win money, or
first place is the only one.
First place is the only one that matters.
Right.
That's right. So,
exactly.
We're always going to focus our strategies there to the types of games you guys are playing. We're not going to, go off on our own little tangent until we make the Draftaholics app coming soon.
Exactly. This is a winner take all. So it's not like you're playing in a tournament field with 3,000 other people, and you can put that floor value in there for some of your picks in order to just make sure you cash. So anyway, I agree. To my draft board, I guess I'm 0-5 now in like a lot of different ways this year, and so my story was that whatever I would have taken, I didn't take.
You do have 1 second place in these drafts.
I do, a lot of second places, but if you're not first.
Oh, you're last. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's right. You're always as good as your last pick. But anyway, yeah, Melvin Gordon, great floor. But I think the story of the week goes to DeAndre Hopkins. You'll see later on, either in this episode or our other episode this week, that DeAndre Hopkins will be my faded glory play because of Tre'Davious White. Tre'Davious White is one of the up-and-coming amazing cornerbacks in the league for Buffalo. He shut down Corey Davis after Corey Davis had a monster week 4. He shut him down for 4 catches for 49 yards. And I think he will keep DeAndre in check. This is my what's it called? Oh, I'm so blanking. Hedging my bet. So so DeAndre will either be really good or really not good, and so one or the other, my faded glory, I'll get a point or I'll win $8 from y'all. So that was the pick. I mean, DeAndre is obviously
still win one of these drafts with
that'd be nice.
One dud performance. So
totally.
Yeah.
And as you were speaking about, Thielen is an absolute star. He's a PPR maven. He's getting so many targets. Kirk loves tossing the ball to him. He gets all types of catches too. He gets catches in the slot. He gets those 9 go routes, and he gets those dump offs. So it's amazing. In regards to Tom Brady, I was between Tom Brady and Matt Ryan. I'm going with Tom Brady just because I know he loves his child a little bit more than Matt Ryan loves his.
Wow.
So
that's the way he kisses his son. Okay.
Yeah.
I do also have to say, when talking about Adam Thielen and talking about the Vikings in general, the Vikings have been up and down this season. They have huge Super Bowl expectations, and they haven't quite played to that level. Right. And there's been so much said about their running game being bad, and their success rate numbers do not look good. I do have to say, though, they pass at a level that I'm so happy to see in the NFL that I don't really care so much. Right. They just run to establish their offense at this point. They throw passes even to their running backs, which are much higher leverage plays overall. It's just not something I'm worried about, and especially when you have deep targets going to Stephon Diggs, short area targets soaked up by Thielen and Rudolph, and then you have the opportunity to go to Cook and even Latavius Murray. That offense is fine. That offense is just fine, and Thielen is a star.
The quarterback carousel offseason too. It's interesting that Kirk Cousins is really the only one that is performing at or above the level of expectation. Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, Case Keenum, Sam Bradford, and Alex Smith are all sort of underperforming from their carousel moves off season. But Kirk Cousins moved from Washington to Minnesota and is keeping up the pace.
Yeah, and QB, and just like that, we are on to the part of the show where we dribble a basketball and we shoot it up and in. That's right, it's the Draftaholics Quickshots, where we talk about our CashSmash plays, our faded glory, which are the plays we're staying far away from, our floor play, where we talk about the player that we may not have the biggest ceiling, but we think that they are going to have the points to be in any lineup you want them to be in, and that Moonshot, a player that's off the radar, off the beaten path, but could be a sneaky starter and maybe score a touchdown that puts you into the money in daily fantasy sports. So we start with our CashSmash. If you're playing just a few lineups on FanDuel, on DraftKings, on your daily fantasy site of choice, maybe you're 0-5 in your home league, maybe you're 5-0 and you just want to add on to the good times, play these players in your main lineups. William, starting with you, CashSmash.
My CashSmash this week is Christian McCaffrey, Mr. CMC himself.
Ooh.
He is tied with Devin Funchess for the most targets in Carolina with 33, and he's been catching a lot more with 28. to Devin's 18, giving him a very sweet and tasty 84.85% completion rate, which is great in terms of something that Cam can rely on. Maybe he's benefited a little bit from Greg Olsen's absence, and he might be back, but also Greg Olsen could just step a little bit too hard on his foot and be off the field again.
Don't say it.
But that's, the thing about Greg Olsen's injury is that could happen very early in the game, and he could be out again. But also, Greg Olsen coming back gives defenses 2 valuable targets to cover over the middle of the field where Christian can eat. They've been dealing with Ian Thomas.
That's right.
The last couple of weeks, who has dropped essentially every pass thrown his way.
He has not stepped up.
So I think that Christian has a really good opportunity against Washington, who also is the best opportunity in terms of adjusted line yards against. So I think that the front in Carolina should be able to make some room for Christian as a running back, as well as getting some opportunity in the passing game. That's why he's my cash match this week. I think he's going to. I do believe last week was his first touchdown, but I think he's got a good opportunity to score again and have a really high floor, both catching the ball and running.
He's kind of shown you all of the things you want to see from a bell cow running back at this point. He had his big 140 plus on the ground type day. You know what he can do in the passing game if he gets lined up against a linebacker. And then if you add on touchdowns, if you add on goal line carries, that becomes icing on the cake.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect segue to my cash smash, Julio Jones.
Talk about regression.
We have to talk about these touchdowns because Twitter is a flurry with this talk about Julio, the never Julio hashtag that you tend to see running around. Half the people don't even know if it's serious or not. And the reason is his expected touchdowns are not the same as his observed touchdowns. They're always less, those observed touchdowns.
Yeah.
Looking at playerprofiler.com, you can now see expected touchdowns, and the bottom line is he should have 1.5 to 2.5 touchdowns right now.
Per game? Or
total.
Oh, okay, total.
And he has 0.
Right.
If he had that 1.5 to 2.5 touchdowns, we are talking about the number 1 overall type season happening right now. Meanwhile, Calvin Ridley is 4.8 touchdowns over expectation, while Sanu is 1 over expectation. So we're talking about major regression on both sides. Basically, they stole touchdowns. They stole them from Julio. This man is on fire. Number 3 in total air yards. Number 6 in total targets. The volume is there.
Mm-hmm.
The TDs will come. Cash smash, Julio Jones.
I like it. I'm happy to have him in our draft.
I thought he was going to have the touchdown last week. I really did. He was my cash match, and God, he didn't even get a catch until the fourth quarter. Which, yes, his volume is always there. The targets were there, but I don't know, man. Something's weird. I don't know.
I guess we can never expect him to be an Antonio Brown type touchdown receiver. I don't know what that is, or like a Des Bryant was always fantastic in that zone.
It's the offense, I think.
He's not even getting that. He's not even getting that.
Yeah.
He's not even getting that fade route, one-on-one wide receiver coverage where, like, Drew Brees forced the ball to Michael Thomas on Monday night and he didn't get the ball. But, like, Julio doesn't even get that type of target anymore.
He doesn't.
I don't know why.
Maybe I don't mean the offense as a whole, but maybe just the connection from Matt Ryan to Julio. It doesn't feel like when you watch a Falcons game, it doesn't feel like he's always looking Julio's way, like Ben is always looking at Antonio. Like, the force feeding the ball to him, it just isn't happening.
I will always think of Stafford to Calvin Johnson with reckless abandon.
Just forcing it there.
And you know what? Calvin was good enough.
Matt Ryan doesn't seem to do that.
Yeah, he was.
All right.
Who's your cash match, George?
Yeah, George, hit us up.
Cash match. Well, one other thing. I do think you quickly brought up Ito Smith as a mistake. Right. I predict he will be our cash smash within the first 10 weeks next year.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
I do. Tevin will be gone.
Kevin Coleman is likely out the door.
Tevin will be gone.
Likely, yeah.
Tevin's likely out, and Devonta is crumbling in terms of injuries.
Sure.
And Ito has been really, really well so far. I mean, he's been playing really well. Ito Smith has more touchdowns than Julio Jones. Okay, moving on.
Wow.
Moving on.
Laugh to cry.
James White.
To cry.
It's true. It is. Yeah. James White is my cash mash guys. Kansas City.
Wow.
I don't care who he's playing. 15 targets last week. He had 10 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown with Julian Edelman and Sonny Michel in the lineup. Gronk, call me crazy. I think he's lost his step, guys. He really has. He's averaging 9.3 points per game in half-point PPR. Number 7 behind George Kittle, Jared Cook, Eric Ebron, and the likes. who to thunk it, but I really think he's lost a step. I think he is a great person to have on your team because he demands double coverage, and therefore someone becomes open, and that's James White. I'm not worried about Sony Michel at all. I know, Matt, you're going to talk about it, or we will talk about it in terms of James White and the love for Sony Michel as well. But James White was on the field for 40 snaps last week, and Sony was on the field for 33. So he's getting the snap count percentage you want, even with Sony Michel on the team. Through the first 4 weeks, James White snap count went up every week except for week 3, but he's continually climbing in snap count percentage. Tom Brady loves him, and he's just going to have a day again. That's what it's going to be.
Did you see that touchdown catch he had 2 weeks ago in the corner of the end zone?
Yes.
You know what that reminded me of? Breeze to Kamara. Now, the catch wasn't as fantastic. The throw didn't have to be as perfect as the one I'm thinking of in the playoffs where Kamara ran a wheel route into the back corner of the end zone. But it's a copycat league, folks. Belichick saw what was happening, and James White can pull those plays off.
Sure.
And if I'm wrong, I think that was like a 28-yard pass.
Yes, exactly.
Like it wasn't like a 5 or 6 yard thing. It was like, okay, go.
No, a true number one receiving option on a play type back where we look to him first in the read.
He has the most receptions for the Patriots, 44 to Gronk's 31.
There you go. And I want to talk about the tight ends that you just brought up ahead of Gronk.
Yeah.
Weirdly enough this year, but it's a great segue again into my faded glory play. Guys, it's a weird weekend on DraftKings and on FanDuel. If you're looking to win $1 million, if you're into the big slate tournaments, there's none of the big names in the tight end world this week.
Yeah, I actually laughed when I clicked on tight end on DraftKings on Build a Lineup. It was
the
Eric
most
Ebron
expensive.
Is at the
crazy.
top.
The number one, Eric Ebron. Number 2 is Jordan Reed, Jared Cook, Kyle Rudolph. Those are your top 4 tight ends. No Gronk, no Kelsey, no Ertz, no Evan Engram because he's out and he played on Thursday.
Jack
so
Doyle is out.
So it's a mess.
Yeah.
What I'm doing for my faded glory is I'm fading all 4 of the highest priced tight ends. Do not pay up for tight end this week. I really like Cameron Brate as a sneaky start here in all formats. However, my bet is that Ebron, Reed, Cook, and Rudolph all finish outside of the top 4 tight end scorers this week. All of them are looking at mediocre, middle-of-the-line racer stats. That's receiver air conversion rate. That's just receiving yards divided by air yards, a highly predictive stat for PPR points. Rudolph is 20th among tight ends in weighted opportunity rate. That's market share of targets and air yards.
Right.
So he's relying on an end zone target or 3 to be relevant at all this year.
Thielen's the first look over the middle of the field. It's just the way it's been playing out.
Reed is 11th, but he's not even playing a full tight end snap share or route share. So at least he's being given the ball when he's on the field, but none of these guys look like number 1 options. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but if I were going to bet on any of the 4 of them, it would be Jared Cook, but I choose none. Faded glory, all 4.
Yeah, I think I'm down. Can I vote? Can I vote that we do a 0 tight end 2 kicker league next year?
I'm going to leave this set.
At least tight end. I'm with you, man. I want to add punters. So
oh my god. We're going to have to cut to just George because the steam's coming out of my ears so much.
I'm kidding. The punter thing is a complete joke.
William, tell me your faded glory.
My faded glory is someone who had a lot of expectations coming into the year but has really disappointed until last week, Mr. Kenyan Drake. He finally got a little bit more of the usage everyone was hoping for in the offseason. But
looked good last week.
But the usage actually wasn't even that good. He only had 6 carries to Frank Gore, old man Gore's 12.
Oh.
He was used more in the passing game. He had, I think, 11 catches. But, you have to bank on something like a 40-plus yard breakaway touchdown. I'm going to compare him to 2 other guys. Isaiah Crowell, Aaron Jones. Both not receiving excellent opportunity, but they have the talent, the speed, the breakaway ability to win your week. But that's definitely not someone you want to bet on.
Right.
I don't want you to take a look at the stat line from last week and put your money on Kenyan Drake or Isaiah Crowell or Aaron Jones until we see some more consistent usage in the run game or the pass game that makes them a better bet. That's why he's my fave this week.
Adam Gase is not trustworthy, whatever he says, okay?
He's a booger.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, he's coach speak maven, if you will. Nothing out of his mouth is for us. It's all for the game of gamesmanship, the football stuff.
He's the East Coast Pete Carroll.
Sure.
Yeah, that's very good comp. We're full of comps here on this Kenyan Drake take.
Yeah, and that Pete Carroll, you just said Pete Carroll, and I think about his coach speak, and it still gets me fired up from a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
All right, Faded Glory, George, hit us up.
Faded Glory, George. DeAndre Hopkins.
Ooh, yeah.
Toasty.
Ooh. A weird Faded Glory, because I still like him. I think he's the better wide receiver to Tre'Davious White as a cornerback. From out of LSU, but Tre'Davious White has been an exceptional cornerback this year. He just kept Corey Davis after going really hot in Week 4, kept Corey Davis to 4 receptions for 49 yards. Yeah. I know Marcus Mariota is not in the same, should not be mentioned in the same breath as Deshaun Watson in terms of quarterbacks and comparisons and how good they are. But 2 words that Matt loves to say is the name of a wide receiver who is playing like a Calvin Ridley. He's getting the looks and he's getting the touchdowns. You want to say his name, Matt?
Kiki Kuti?
I think it's pronounced cutie. I have to say it. I think it is.
You can correct me from now to the end of time, but I'm saying Kiki Kuti.
That's who it is.
A little voice memo in our text.
Yeah, I did.
Text thread, and it made me cringe and laugh in an interesting way.
Here's a hot take in regards to DeAndre Hopkins. I think that Matt, can you hear me by the way? Okay,
yes,
great.
I can hear you just fine.
I think the Texans are going to work on their run game for the rest of the year. Alfred Blue had 28 carries last week, guys. I think they are anticipating a Donta Foreman return Week 7 from the pup. I talked about him a lot on the offseason. You can look at our original episodes. I think they're going to really flex their muscles in the run game. Listen, DeAndre Hopkins is still, I think, a top 5 wide receiver moving forward, but I just think they're gonna flex their muscles of their run game to prepare for Donta Foreman. As y'all know, in our league of record, I trade Lamar Miller. I fear another running back by committee with Alfred Blue and Donta Foreman. I think Donta Foreman should rise to the top, just like Aaron Jones should rise to the top in Green Bay, but you cannot guarantee that. Mariota had a terrible week against Buffalo last week. 129 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. Again, not the same player as Deshaun Watson, but I'm just pumping the brakes, as the fantasy footballers would say on DeAndre Hopkins this week.
Sure.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think that's a tough pump to break, if you will, but...
Tough break to pump?
Yeah, one of those.
Tough pump to break. That's it.
But I like the take. I mean, I think you have a good chance here.
Yeah, I totally get it too. And look, if he's wrong, he's going to win that money on the draft.
And because of like the system we've created with the different topics, I still can see DeAndre Hopkins getting 7 catches for 75 yards. But that's not what you look for from your wide receiver 1.
That's not what you're
exactly
for,
right. Based on his salary, that's what you want more. And it's the same problem with Julio Jones. That's why people are upset with him as well. Sure. So we're going to stay on that idea with the floor play. And we actually were talking about him in a negative light just a few minutes ago, but it's Devonta Freeman. I still think he has a chance to smash this week. That is in his range of outcomes in this big, high implied total game against the Buccaneers. We're really sticking with the Buccaneers-Falcons game. It was a matchup of the week. I put Julio Jones as my cash smash. Now I'm running it back with Devonta Freeman. I obviously think highly of the Falcons, and I don't know if they're going to win. Right. So it does make me nervous that I'm choosing a player as a floor play that isn't a favorite running back or isn't definitely going to win. But I think Devonta Freeman is going to be established early in this game. Okay. I don't know if that's ever good for an NFL offense. I think that's just neutral, if not bad, as far as strategy goes. But I think that is what's going to happen. Coming back from that knee injury, still trying to work on and work out the kinks of this offense. They've never really gotten right in rhythm with their full team. I think they try to do that with Devonta Freeman in their first 15, the first 15 plays that every team scripts traditionally. So if we see a breakaway there, I think they lean on Devonta all day. Then I get nervous about my cash smash Julio Jones. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm maybe just excited to see Devonta Freeman much closer to full health. Love his vision, love his ability to evade tackles when healthy, and I hope that's this week against the Buccaneers, who got torched by running backs, especially Tariq Cohen. Yeah. If Freeman catches a few passes in the open field, it could be game over quickly.
Yeah, what do you say about his 8 rushes and 2 targets last week, though. You just think that completely reverses?
Yeah, I think they're just easing him in.
Sure.
I mean, basically, that's what this is a bet on, is that he was not
coming back
fully healthy until they saw him with 10 touches, and then they're like, okay, you can get 18 now.
Sure.
So,
I like the take.
Yeah, there you go. Floor play. Even with 12 to 15, I think he can be effective in the right usage.
Yeah, and for the price you're paying on DraftKings, I think he's like halfway down he might be like the 20th.
Yeah, much cheaper than usual.
Yeah, exactly.
So George, hit us up with your floor.
I'm flooring it with AJ Green. He has been, it's harkening back to it, talking about our league of record. I remember struggling mightily in the second round between Keenan Allen and AJ Green, who to choose. And the tides may change later on in the year, but AJ Green has been outplaying Keenan Allen, and AJ Green's been playing really well. He's been playing like a full wide receiver 1. The emergence of Tyler Boyd has been very helpful to AJ Green himself. AJ has had a touchdown and or 100 yards in 4 out of the 5 games so far. The 5th game being the one when he was taken out of the game with an injury in the first half. So I would have anticipated either a touchdown or 100 yards in the 5th game as well. Pittsburgh's not great against the wide receiver. They've given up 8 touchdowns so far to the wide receiver position through 5 games. So here's a plus and a minus. So I think that Eifert, I think that helps spread the ball around and spread the field out. So no Eifert is a negative, and I think Mixon is actually positive. Mixon had a great touchdown catch last week, and I think he also spreads the field out a bit. You have to give even more respect to the run game. No offense to Gio Bernard, but Mixon is a real 3-down back. He's a bit, Gio's smaller and fast and a great PPR guy, but Mixon is a true 3-down back, so you have to respect the run game, and I think AJ Green against Pittsburgh will probably feast.
As you say, respect the run game, and we talked about just a minute ago establishing the run. These are kind of anti-analytics, old school football guys kind of phrases, but I want to give them some credence, some credit here for just a minute, because there's a concept that they talk about in basketball a lot called gravity, which is the attention paid to you by a defense. That first step of a play action pass, that first move when the ball is hiked. And I think Joe Mixon really affects that first step, that first twitch in AJ Green's favor. That uncertainty, the fact that the defense is a little bit more unsure, is just enough to tip the scales. You still need the talent. You still need to be a number 1 receiver. Zeke isn't doing that magically for any receiver in Dallas. But I do have to say, I think that there's a possibility that both AJ Green and Mixon continue to be number 1s throughout the rest of the year.
And I love that idea of gravity too, because it kind of reminds me. I was watching the All-22 video footage from the Tom Brady pass to Josh Gordon, which was the touchdown, and Chris Hogan was wide open on a go route, like 20 yards deeper than that. And I think that's when this goes back to gravity. You respect number 28 for the Bengals. You respect number 18 of the Bengals, and you really try to shadow them on that first step. So I think in the same way, I'm just sort of repeating what you're saying, but yes. Mixon and AJ Green both can have.
And so we defined it for your analytics folks out there. We defined it now. We can measure it. We just don't have it for free. These player tracking devices that are in their pads or in the ball, we could absolutely measure these types of things. First movement towards or behind the line of scrimmage, things like that. But we just don't have access. Some people do, not us, to that type of data.
Exactly.
So with that, I want to go to the final floor play.
Yeah.
William.
My floor play this week is Jordan Howard. So the Bears are favored going in to face the Dolphins.
Yes,
they are on the road, and there's a relatively low over-under, but I think they get ahead, and they're able to shut down the Dolphins with their aggressive defensive front and put the ball in Jordan Howard's hands a lot to run down the clock for the rest of the game. I want to talk about something interesting in terms of DVOA stats, which are something we use a lot in betting and daily fantasy.
Devoir,
yes. The devoir against the Dolphins is weird. It looks like they're one of the hardest teams to face. They're ranked 5th in DVOA, but in their past 2 losses, they've really underperformed. They've been two score or more losses, and but when you look at a slightly different stat, like their pace of play, where they rank last in the league, you need to take other things into consideration besides DVOA. The Dolphins are not a hard matchup. I think that Jordan Howard is going to get the ball a lot. They're not even going to have to rely on Mr. 6-touchdown Mitch Trubisky. But
Yeah.
It's going to be a good game for the Bears, and they're going to be able to put the ball in the running back's hands a lot.
I like that too because the whole Tariq Cohen big game, Jordan Howard causing drama. Well, he didn't cause drama, but the fact that he didn't get a lot of carries in the second half, and there's his card signed. Hey, I love when Slotin does that from the home memorabilia office there. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good choice, Will, like Jordan Howard says.
Yeah, and I think it's a get-right game for his opportunities, his opportunity share, and, they're always going to be, with that defense, they're going to try to just defense and clock management.
Right.
Just a couple points here and there. Matt Nagy can certainly do that with just a couple plays.
And he costs almost $4,000 less than Todd Gurley on DraftKings, so he's definitely someone you could pop in there as a floor play.
Oh, yeah, that's great. So you can add him along.
And then and then they'll give you the $4,000.
They'll give it to you. That's right.
Exactly. In point, they just give you points, I think.
And just like that, it's time for our final quick shot. It's the Moonshot.
Yeah.
That's the player a little bit off the radar, not highly owned in any tournaments, any cash games in daily fantasy sports, but they have a chance to go off. The ceiling is there. Even the floor might be there. This is that sneaky flex play that we think could help you win some big money in daily sports. So I want to start with you, William. Who's that Moonshot? Who's that guy you're taking a chance on in week 6?
Going back to the fountain here with that Falcons Tampa Bay game. And
I'm
gonna put my Moonshot on Mohamed Sanu. Let's just bring up another stat that makes this matchup a little more enticing. The Falcons are playing Tampa Bay, who ranks 32nd in devois versus the pass. Yes, that is last.
That's very last.
There's going to be some opportunities for them to score through the air. I think some of the targets that Hooper got last week against the Steelers, who happen to be weak against the tight end, they end up back in Sanu's hands, and he's got a good chance for a touchdown here. I'm kind of maybe hedging my bet a little bit like George was doing because I picked Julio in our draft. But maybe the touchdown goes to Sanu this week. He's only scored twice. I think I can take a look at that.
I don't know his total touchdowns, but I know it's one over expectation.
Yeah, he has not scored a lot. No, I actually don't think he has.
He scored
two touchdowns.
He scored. He has 2 touchdowns.
2 touchdowns so far. But I think he has a good opportunity to score again this week. That's why he's my Moonshot.
I love
2 more than Julio.
Yep, that's right. 2 more than 0. George, Moonshot, fire away.
Oh, this is a weird one, but I guess I'm going to stick with it. Sammy Watkins. Sammy Watkins going against the Patriots. Go back to the Patriots D. They've given up 6 touchdowns. They gave up 6 touchdowns through the first 3 games of the season to wide receivers, Houston, Jacksonville, and Detroit. Don't forget that crazy Jaguars game where Keelan Cole, Dante Moncrief, and Dede, not Kiki, Dede Westbrook all got touchdowns. They all scored. What I will say, so Sammy had a hammy injury in week 4 and he was out. But every other game he's seen an 80% plus snap count percentage. 3 out of the other 4 games he went for either 75 yards and or a touchdown. He had 100 yards one week. He had 5 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown one other week. And last week he had 6 catches for 78 yards. So he's a really good ancillary option in Kansas City. I think there's a lot of attention to Tyreek and to Travis Kelce and to Kareem Hunt, and I think that Sammy Watkins, and he's shown it, has gone through the cracks a little bit and becomes open, and he's made his fair share of plays because of that.
Yeah, so he might be the 5th highest owned player on that Chiefs offense for any given week. And yet, he has just as high as a touchdown probability as someone who's 3rd or 4th.
Exactly. So, I think it looks kind of like the Saints offense where you want a piece. I feel like Sammy Watkins season long is even kind of a buy right now. I think he's someone who hasn't really performed super highly, but let's say the connection with Pat Mahomes improves.
I actually disagree there. I disagree because what I want in season long leagues, unless I'm looking at like maybe a final flex option
this is a flex,
here or there,
yeah.
But I still want that proven. I'd rather have a floor of consistency rather than the up and down that Sammy Watkins tends to bring you. That's why he was one of my highest owned players in best ball. Right. Don't get me wrong. I really like the talent for the exact reasons that George is talking about, but I don't want to deal with starting him that often.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end the Moonshot with a little segment I like to call Matt's Metrics. All right, so here we go. I'm so excited for this. I'm way too excited for this. So there is a stat that I have been cooking up, and I'm still working on it and working out the kinks with it, but I'm calling it, right now, I'm calling it quality opportunities. QOPs. No one's calling it QOPs.
Yeah, let's not call
We're
it
calling
QOPs.
it quality opportunities, and this is a running back statistic. And it is a volume statistic that specifically focuses on plays that are expected to be high efficiency. So we're expecting 5 to 7 yards gained, or we're close to the goal line, so there is touchdown value expected. TJ Hernandez of 4for4.com calls this red zone expected value. So this is essentially a different way of calculating that. But we're just adding up light front carries, that's 5 or less close to the line of scrimmage as linebackers or linemen. Targets, those are passes received from the quarterback. And green zone carries or 10 zone carries. Those are rushes inside the 10-yard line with a higher probability of scoring, obviously. So when you look at quality opportunities, one of the names that sticks out right away, James White, we talked about him as a cash smash. He's in the top 10. But I was shocked to see Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones. Little Ronald Jones, who was inactive the first few weeks of the season for Tampa Bay, at number 17 in quality opportunities. And he's sitting around some notable players like Lamar Miller, Adrian Peterson, Kareem Hunt, TJ Yeldon, LaShawn McCoy. These are big name players, and he's within a half of a quality opportunity of those players on a per game basis. So then when you look at the matchup against Atlanta, we keep talking about it, but I don't care. It's the matchup of the week. They are allowing 1.25 top 24 performances at the running back position per week. Yes, that means they're averaging more than one individual in the top 24 each week that they play. So that means that there's massive opportunity in this game for the running back position. I think that the type of game that we saw from Nyheim Hines on Thursday night is absolutely in the range of outcomes for Ronald Jones. And if we get really lucky, we have that James White style ceiling type game that we've seen a couple times this year. That is the type of upside I see in Ronald Jones. With that said, would I be surprised if he had 4 carries for 10 yards? No, not at all.
What did he have last week? He had 10 for 29.
10 for 29.
Yeah, that's pretty decent.
So
his first game.
So we're talking about... What's up?
Philip Lindsay or Ronald Jones?
Of course I like Philip Lindsay. Philip Lindsay has...
What about Royce?
100%. Players that have proven themselves, have gotten in the end zone in the NFL, who have, more than 10 carries, period, they are going to get a boost in the rankings, projection-wise.
Yeah.
Way ahead. This is a moonshot. This is the matchup play. This is a player who I think comes out of nowhere in terms of ownership. I still like the talent a little bit. Maybe he can run through a big hole and just get a big breakaway run like he did at USC, and all will be well in the world, and the Ronald Jones truthers from April will all come out of hiding, and it'll just be a great, glorious day of another moonshot hit, another moonshot TD, and that is the way the cookie will crumble.
Yeah, plus with your lead in our scoring so far, you can kind of afford to take a moonshot like this.
Yeah, exactly. Taking a little bit of a risk, and I hope you take the same little intelligent risks with your lineup to rule them all. And that's what we're going to give you, the one DFS lineup to rule them all. And guys, we were stoked about this lineup. We use a little bit of an optimizer, a customized tool that we've set up here. And this one for FanDuel, maybe our favorite lineup yet. So hit us up with the lineup and those salary requirements. Will, do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, sure. So we started with Jameis Winston at quarterback, who, going back to the well on that,
Atlanta
Tampa Bay game. And I'm going to skip down to tight end because we paired him with Cameron Brate, talking about those high-priced tight ends this week not being worth it, but someone like Cameron Brate maybe be able to pull it off for us. Our running backs were Joe Mixon and TJ Yeldon, both in great situations. And we ended up with Antonio Brown, Jarvis Landry, and Tyler Boyd at wide receiver.
Tasty.
15%, 11%, and 10% respectively in each of those positions. We actually ended up not really paying up for anyone except for Antonio Brown.
Yeah.
Everyone else is kind of averaging around that 11, 12% rate. We slid our flex in with Carlos Hyde, so we've got Jarvis Landry and Carlos Hyde. I feel like the Browns perform really well. I've talked about their defense recently. That always elevates the possibility for good scoring from a running back.
And I think one of the reasons we chose to look at that matchup too is because if they are going to put up 300-something yards passing against the Ravens, even in this ugly 9-6, 12-9 kind of game, what can they do against the Chargers in a wide open game where they're going to be asked to score 30 points? They've already scored 42 against the Raiders.
The Chargers don't scare me at all. I'm gonna call that. I think the Browns get another win this week. I think that would be exciting and definitely a possibility. And then at defense, at first we had the Ravens slotted in there, but we were actually able to afford the Bears. Wherever you can get the Bears front seven, I think you should definitely play them because we had not really spent too much otherwise in our lineup. We were able to slip them in there at defense, and I think we've got a really good chance to pay out this week.
Yeah, this one feels really good at least. So watch it be like the lowest score after all of that work. But really, this looks like a great lineup. And, we were looking at possible pivots. Do we want to take this guy out? Do we want to swap that guy? And we realized as we started looking at the lineup, I was like, we don't. We could really mess with it, but it's better to go with our gut.
I think this was a good week for our optimizer as well. We kind of talked about it being a weird slate, but you didn't really want to pay up for any of those super expensive running backs. DraftKings, I believe, has Todd Gurley at $10,000.
20%.
Yeah, which is 20% of your salary. So not having to spend like that on running back this week and being able to spend a little bit more money on wide receiver, getting Antonio Brown, for example, it seems like a really good week to play over at FanDuel.
I love it. I love the one lineup to rule them all. I will leave you with one tip, which is if you think Gurley is going to smash, pay for him anyway.
Right.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah. Just because he's not in our lineup doesn't mean he can't be in yours.
Exactly.
It can be your one lineup to rule them all that way, but we're trying to give you the best we possibly can early in the week from the Draftaholics. Guys, thank you so much for checking us out. We really just can't tell you how much we appreciate it in these early days of this podcast. Just getting started, just getting rolling, trying to get a good product out there for you week in and week out. Thank you so much for taking the time. My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic on Twitter. Who's up in the fantasy orb?
At George Slotin, I think. Am I still there?
You're still there.
I'm still here. Yeah, no, well, one T and one N.
Oh, wow. Now he's trying to steal Consonant Man from you? Yeah. Wow. Shade has been thrown.
Don't let that confuse you too much with my Twitter handle here. I'm William Spinato at W Spinato on Twitter. 2 N's and 1 T. Might I add that I'm also part of the 0-5 club in our league.
Hey!
It's been a tough sled. Although I did outscore George last week, so if we had faced up, I would have got the win.
Yeah, welcome back, Mark Ingram.
Yeah,
folks,
man.
We will see you next week, week 7, even more. We're into the bye week weeds after that.
Yeah.
Never fun, but fantasy football always is. Guys, we're the Draftaholics, where you're only as good as your last pick. See ya.